Progress is the watchword in the universe. Wherever you are at in your spiritual ascension, there is a way to ascend beyond that. Every time you do, not only do you save yourself out of some hardship down the road, but you're also qualifying yourself for more greatness, glory, and goodness to come your way. Because when you're qualified for that, it comes without its downsides. The highs of this world come with its downsides. Let's talk about alcohol. Let's talk about drugs, your party where you went out and spent $1,000. All of those things have their downsides, their vices. But the Urantia book is revealing a spiritual plan and an ascension that doesn't have downsides, because you're qualifying by having a mind of perfect poise, a body of clean habits. You're understanding things on all levels. And so that way you are not able to distort whatever sort of spiritual insight comes your way. We're looking at page 1140, and this is the essence of religion. And religion has become somewhat of a dirty word, especially in something like the New Age, where they say I'm spiritual but not religious, even though it has turned into a religion with many dogmas, even though it still has its good aspects. And you'll see that's kind of the theme here, that we're pointing out the things of the religions that are holding people back, those fears or dogmas. But we're also adding to that tree. We're not just chopping down the tree. We'd rather add living growth to that tree and let the dead branches fall off, because within those religions, there are seeds and grains of great truth. All of them. All of man's religions have those seeds and grains of that truth. So please like and subscribe, folks. Our Urantia book community is growing good here. And this is the most profound truth on the planet. Don't take my word for it. Let's check it out. The essence of religion. Theology deals with the intellectual content of religion. Metaphysics, revelation, with the philosophic aspects. Remember, metaphysics is a substitute for revelation. If somebody, like your yogis and things like that, they didn't have a Urantia book, so they had to put something in its place, so they put metaphysics there. They did have the life and teachings of Jesus, and that did filter throughout their religions, especially the teachings of Melchizedek, filtered throughout all of the world's religions, and then teaches how it did that. So they did have some revelation in there. All right, but this is the philosophic, because remember, we are just reading a book. At the end of the day, you have to activate this book personally in your own life with your divine parent. Religious experience is the spiritual content of religion. See, now it's not a dirty word, because you're having your own personal experience. So there's different types of religion. There's man's religions, and then there's your religious experience, which is true and genuine. That's the spiritual content of religion. Now, this is a great line right here, super important. Notwithstanding the mythological vagaries, which I believe means strange mythological, perversions, basically, like, oh, this is fire, a god of fire, whatever. All the psychologic illusions of the intellectual content of religion, the metaphysical assumptions of error, and the techniques of self-deception, the political distortion, and the socioeconomic perversions of the philosophic content of religion, the spiritual experience of personal religion remains genuine and valid. So this is why we can't look at a Christian person or Jewish person or whoever and say, well, you're automatically wrong. I know you're wrong because of this is what you believe. They might have some intellectual content that isn't philosophically sound, or they might have some political distortions with your Christian nationalism or something like that embraced in their religion and that sort of thing, these perversions. Notwithstanding all that, though, that person could be very much having a very spiritual insight. And that's just Because remember, folks, the spirit and the heart is a separate, discrete realm from the mind. That could just be how their mind is, able to put the word symbols to whatever they're trying to feel and whatever they're feeling. So again, this is about a unity type of situation here. But the book isn't saying everybody's religion is perfect. Look at this. Self-deception. There should be no such word as deception in the dictionary. It should be crossed off and replaced with the word self-deception, because you have the spirit of truth. Right and wrong is written on the heart. All the data and evidence is out there in the world. All you have to do is look it up. Google it. What causes cancer, so forth and so on. And then you're deceived. They're going to remember Lucifer, Caligastia. The book teaches that these brilliant beings are on the planet and literally, manipulating the world system against you brilliantly, and they'll beat you hands down every time unless you align with deity and divinity. And that's not to be afraid. You're not to be afraid of that, because fear is their number one poison. That's how they will get humankind. But you are to be aware of that. We are to be, remember, awareness is queen to revelation, like a king and a queen. This is the revelation. But if you're not aware, then it's just a tightly shut block of wood. You have to be aware and open it up and live these things and understand these things. Okay. So like I said, we're adding to this tree. That's a valid thing. Okay. Religion has to do with feeling, acting, and living, not merely with thinking. Thinking is more closely related to the material life and should be in the main, but not all together, dominated by reason and the facts of science in its non-material reaches towards the spirit realm by truth. No matter how illusory and erroneous one's theology, one's religion may be wholly genuine and everlastingly true. And that's such a unifying statement right there. I remember I asked my grandmother, she was a Catholic and went to church all the time, prayed on the rosary and everything. I said, Grandma, do you really believe all those Muslim people are going to hell? She said, Mike, I don't believe that type of shit. And it just goes to show, she transcended her own theology. Her theology says that if you don't accept Jesus on your deathbed, you're going to go to hell for eternity. But she was beyond that. She was much more spiritual than her own theology, much more religious, her personal religion. Buddhism, in its original form, is one of the best religions without a god, which has arisen throughout all evolutionary history of Eurasia. Although, as this faith developed, it did not remain godless. They added, various sects of Buddhism added a god to it. You could even say that Buddha is a god. If they didn't self-deceive themselves, they would say, hey, geez, we're talking about this guy figure, this spiritual figure that we all worship, essentially. Why can't we isn't that God? And like, no, we have to do a mental gymnastics in order to. Religion without faith is a contradiction without God. See, if somebody says I'm spiritual, I don't know what I believe. They believe in something. They have some sort of faith, right? But if not, then you're just philosophic. You're just using logic and theorems. But as soon as you say, no, I believe there's something beyond logic and theorems, boom, right then and there. That's a spiritual religion, no matter what it is, how small, how great. Without God, a philosophic inconsistency, see, and an intellectual absurdity, right? Without God, folks, without faith, without God. So your Eastern mystics, your mysticisms, your sad gurus, they're into that philosophic absurdity and they'll mental gymnastics. You pin them down to, don't you have faith? And he does mental gymnastics. It says, well, in India, we XYZ, it's like, well, are you having faith in India? Is India your God? And that sort of thing. But, they're trying to be savvy, and a lot of it is about the money too. And remember, we're talking about arch deception here, but those followers would have to then eventually say, I'm going to really think about this. And then they'd have to say, well, he can only deceive so much. Eventually, if I'm going to play along with it, it's a self-deception. Because remember, we're talking multi-billion-dollar industries here, and not just the spiritual communities, which are with the churches, the mega churches, and all that. Let's look at for instance, your military-industrial complex, right? Let's say, oh, geez, we really want to get these machines built so that we can benefit, we can sell them. Well, geez, we need fearful people in order to do that. How can we get a whole group of fearful people on our side? Well, is there any religions out there whose number one main tenet is fear? Fear God? Yeah, the Christians are. Okay, let's get them on our side. Okay, yeah, they're going to fear their enemy. They're going to fear their Muslims. They're so readily able to point out that everything is Satanism. Dinosaur bones? Oh, that's Satan. Oh, a book like for instance, I had a comment recently about the Urantia book being a work of Satan. Look, it's saying a religion without God is a intellectual absurdity. Yeah, like Satan's going to go around preaching God, right? That was the opposite of what he preached. But they want to say, oh no, that's satanic because it's not of the Bible. Dinosaur, that's satanic. A black cat? Ooh, that's satanic, right? And it's like, oh, military-industrial complex, let's build weapons to, destroy Islam in Iran. Oh, that's Jesus's work, right? Oh, a gun cabinet? Keep every house should have an AR-15 or whatever it is in your house, so your child can open that up and riddle his friend with bullets. That's Jesus's work. You see where this Christian nationalism, they have their own deception baked into it. But that does that mean, am I saying that every single person, Christian national person, isn't religious, isn't spiritual? They might be ascending to a level higher than I am. They must have much more of a deeper faith. But this idea is baked into what their theology is. Now, we want to line up our theology with our spirituality and our religion. It's not saying it has to be some sort of inconsistency and intellectual absurdity. You certainly can line them up, right? The magical and mythological parentage of natural religion does not invalidate the reality and truth of the later revelational religions and the consummate saving gospel of the religion of Jesus. Jesus' life and teachings finally divested religion of the superstitions of magic. See what Jesus did? Now, if you truly understand Jesus, now again, people that are going to deny Jesus, that is a self-deception because they want to say, well, he walked on water, so he's mystical, he's superstitious magic. That's people saying that Jesus walked on water. And the Urantia book teaches that one of the apostles had a dream that Jesus walked on water, and that's how that got baked into the collective conscious, because he talked about his dream. So Jesus was taking away from that. He's saying faith, you can, if you want to say faith is magic, then there's nothing I can say to you. If you want to say faith is a superstitious magical thing, that's where words break down. I cannot convince somebody otherwise because they have to take it on their own. That's where theology, this whole entire book, breaks down. Philosophy, everything. Because faith is a personal step that one makes towards God. The illusions of mythology, the bondage of traditional dogmatism, and we have that in a lot of our religions to this day. Look at women, second-class citizens, Muslim. We always talk about what the Christians are missing. The Muslims, women are second-class citizens, right? The property of man and all that. They need to be forced to do X, Y, Z. That's a traditional dogmatism. But this early magic and mythology very effectively prepared the way for later and superior religion. See, again, it's that tree. By assuming the existence and reality of supermaterial values and beings. It's okay, that was our past. So maybe if I get too, if I sound too, I don't know if angry, I don't know if I'm angry, but maybe that's something that I need to work on, because I look at these things as really taking away from people approaching Jesus and approaching things that are world and life changing. So I have to personally calm myself. I wouldn't say that to a person, but maybe somebody would be offended if they watched this and they heard that but again, that's why I always try to say, it's not, and this is what this chapter is saying, you can call out those inconsistencies without calling the person an evil person that's going to hell for believing this thing. They should ascend and whatever. Like I said, they could be more beyond what I am. So hopefully I can thread this needle here. Although religious experience is a purely spiritual, subjective phenomena, such an experience embraces a positive and living faith attitude. See, there's our positivity toward the highest realms of universe objective reality. Objective, folks. This is not wishful thinking. I have had a fleeting glimpse to show that this spirituality is real. I am personally beyond the faith level for the knowledge of God, and I earned that, and I will take that beyond my grave. I would give my life up for it easily and instantly. And again, nobody can know what I know unless they experience it themselves. Somebody told me that God is a falsehood recently, and I said, I know God is a reality. How do you know what I don't know or do know? They don't know that. They would have to know my birthday and everything else. The ideal of religious philosophy is such a faith trust as would lead man unqualifiedly to depend upon the absolute love of the infinite Father of the universe of universes. Such a genuine religious experience far transcends the philosophic objectification of idealistic desire. So it's like, well, geez, am I just going to heaven so I can get 40 virgins type of thing? Well, it actually takes salvation for granted and concerns itself only with learning and doing the will of the Father in paradise. And everything is encompassed in that. That's how much service you should do, how much contemplation you should do, how much meditation you should do, what should you eat, what should you, so forth, right? But it's all a willingness to participate in step and to do ascend. Do eat the healthy things so that you will feel better. And in doing so, you will help unwind these billion-dollar industries. Like I said, they got the food right on the next page of the stomach stapling advertisement. You know, eat this turkey dinner, and then the next day you're going to go in and get your stomach stapled, and we're going to hit you with $100,000 on each thing. You know, we're going to make $1 billion off the food, and then we're going to make $1 billion off the cure. It's not a cure, by the way. You can defeat that stomach stapling. It actually takes salvation for granted and concerns itself only with learning and doing the will of the Father in paradise. The earmarks of such a religion. Now here, look at this. If you really want something real tangible here to memorize, the earmarks of such a religion are faith in a supreme deity, deity meaning personality, hope of eternal survival. I'm going to live after I die beyond. This is a very hopeful type of situation. You can either do the dirt nap for eternity. Let's live on. Let's have this all mean something, people. Love, most key right there. Look at that. Especially of one's fellows. See how simple that is and how complex it's become on purpose, by design, to keep the world held captive by beings who have a vested interest in keeping this world as their own to themselves, because it's all they have. They have no hope for eternal survival. They have sold their souls, and they are going to confuse this little bit right here to the day that they are ceased to exist, till they're finally adjudicated by the ancients of days and so forth. When theology masters religion, religion dies. Oh, genius. It becomes a doctrine instead of a life. The mission of theology is merely to facilitate the self-consciousness of personal spiritual experience. So you can have some sort of word symbols that go along with it. And in doing so, you can think along those lines. You know, you can do a prayer to a deity because you understand the concept of what deity is, a parent, a divine parent. Theology constituted the religious effort to define, clarify, expound, and justify the experiential claims of religion, which of the universe, wisdom, which in the last analysis can be validated only by living faith. In the higher philosophy of the universe, wisdom, like reason, becomes allied to faith. You see how these, you can't have one with the other, like in the higher sort of things. They start to match up. In the lower, but look, in the lower philosophy of the universe, which might be this Christian person who believes XYZ, you know, like, oh, Trump is Jesus and so forth. Oh, yeah, billionaire guy who did a lot of fraud and a lot of sexual assault. It's obviously Jesus. Well, that is, he can be still in a lower philosophical realm because he still could have faith, right? There's no, you know, that's not a stigma on that person that he's not going to grow and ascend and be mustered into the core of finality or so forth. And he is seeing the good aspects of Trump, which exist. And anybody should say, hey, that there's this good in people, and that's what we're trying to do here. So I'm not even putting a stigma on him. Reason, wisdom, and the faith, but I don't know. I mean, I'm not a judge, really, honestly. So I don't know. But I just know by judging by people's actions and what Jesus said. Like, you can't, it's easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than a rich man to enter through the eye of heaven. We have this unbelievable, uneven distribution of wealth. It's staggering, and people don't realize it's staggering. If your philosophy of politics does not include the staggering, unequal distribution of wealth and how money buys power, the Supreme Court ruled that money is considered free speech now, so they can just use money to lobby whatever, because all they're doing is exercising their speech. And if you don't understand that, how distorted that makes everybody's experience here on earth, how the system is literally rigged against, you can't just work your way up there, folks. I even saw this graph where it was showing the relationship between earned income and wealth, and it's very skewed, as in wealth is not earned, folks. It's either passed down or it's luck or something like that. You know, it's not, there's a discrepancy there. You can't just like earn your way, whatever. Okay, let's continue on here. Reason, wisdom, and faith are man's highest human attainments, okay? Reason, wisdom, and faith are man's highest human attainments. Reason introduces man to the worlds of facts, to things. Wisdom introduces him to a world of truth, to relationships. Faith initiates him into a world of divinity, spiritual experience. So remember, truth and fact are different in that aspect. Fact is circumscribed. It's isolated in worlds of time and space. Remember, evil is relatively real. So that fact, we have evil facts. This war, this person to torture. In the spiritual economy of things, that's going to fall flat and dead. You're not going to have to carry that with you for the whole rest of your eternal ascension. That, in truth, is that. Faith most willingly carries reason along as far as reason can go, and then goes on with wisdom to full philosophic limit. And then it dares to launch out upon the limitless and never-ending universe journey into the sole company of truth. Science knowledge is founded on the inherent adjutant spirit. Now, see, that's what they're saying, folks. These are actual entities. These adjutant spirits are things, beings. There's one for wisdom, there's one for intuition, and so forth. Assumption that reason is valid, that the universe can be comprehended. This isn't just a psychological head trip, folks. These are actual things, realities. Philosophy, coordinate comprehension, is founded on the inherent spirit of wisdom, assumption that wisdom is valid, that the material universe can be coordinated with the spiritual. Religion, the truth of personal spiritual experience, is founded on the inherent thought adjuster, assumption that faith is valid, that God can be known and attained. See, these things are, like I said, written in your heart. The full realization of the reality of mortal life consists in a progressive willingness to believe these assumptions of reason, wisdom, and faith. Such a life is one motivated by truth and dominated by love. And these are the ideals of objective cosmic reality, whose existence cannot be materially demonstrated. See, I mean, what else is there to say, really? When reason recognizes right and wrong, it exhibits wisdom. it's more fundamental, folks, than any human philosophy. You realize that right is coming from God. These are aspects of reality that values are from God. It exhibits wisdom. When wisdom chooses between right and wrong, truth and error, it demonstrates spirit leading. So wisdom can fall flat and dead. But then you have to make the choice. You have to put it into action. And thus are the functions of mind, soul, and spirit ever closely united and functionally interassociated. Reason deals with factual knowledge, wisdom with philosophy and revelation, faith with living spiritual experience, and we have them all. Through truth, man attains beauty, and by spiritual love ascends to goodness. Faith leads to knowing God, not merely to a mystical feeling of the divine presence. So it's not just about feeling. Like you could take a drug and say, hey, I'm feeling this, right? But no, you want to know God, because that will guide you through all of the different... A feeling, what's a feeling going to do to guide you through a thing? Are you going to say, oh no, I can't help my neighbor because that's going to be hard work over there, right? That's what a feeling, if a feeling was your God. But no, you're saying God would say, hey, no, help that guy because you can put yourself in his shoes. And so you're accessing these various levels of wisdom. Faith must not be overmuch influenced by its emotional consequences, right? True religion is an experience of believing and knowing as well as a satisfaction of feeling. There is a reality in religious experience that is proportional to the spiritual content. That's what, folks, that proportional thing. So even if you're like, hey, I'm a spiritual person, why aren't I, like, feeling better about this stuff? Well, you got to take the next step. You got to start now doing self-mastery and taking things out that are harming you, your poisons and various things like that, okay? It's a proportional kind of growth here, spiritual content, and such reality is transcendent to reason, science, and philosophy. So if you can't put it into terms, if somebody wants to have a big philosophical discussion with you about religion and faith, and you say, I just believe, and nobody can prove. If somebody can, if you want to say, hey, if you can show me that, if you can prove the creation of the universe with a scientific theorem, all right, then we can have a conversation about, then I'll entertain your idea that there's no God. But somebody would have to back that up. If somebody says there's no God, they have to back that up by offering some sort of proof. We can just say, we believe, and we have the personal experience. You can have the personal experience as well. And that's all. That's the only proof we can offer. But nobody will ever. That's the unchallengeable dogma. And that is a good thing. It's an unchallengeable dogma. All right, well, we talked about that before. All right. Wisdom and all other human achievement. The convictions of such an experience are unassailable. See that, folks? The logic of religious living is incontrovertible. The certainty of such knowledge is superhuman. The satisfactions are superbly divine. See how good this is? The courage indomitable. The devotions unquestioning. The loyalties supreme. And the destinies final, eternal, ultimate, and universal. Melchizedek, baby! All right, thanks for checking out the video, folks. Please like and subscribe. Remember, that was just one little guy of massive, folks. That's why it's a revelation, not by humans. All right,